A sheriff's deputy pulls over a man on the side of the road, arrests him, and locks him in the back of his patrol car. Before driving off, the deputy takes a strange device from the man's pocket, having no idea what it's actually used for. Later, at the sheriff's office, the deputy reports the arrest.
Sheriff, he had some sort of thing on him, like a oxygen tank for emphysema or something.
Completely unaware that the prisoner has already slipped his handcuffs from behind his back to the front. Seconds later, the man launches a vicious attack, strangling the deputy to death with the handcuffs. After washing the blood off his hands and wrapping his injured wrists, the killer grabs his captive bolt pistol and drives away in the stolen patrol car. A short time later, he flips on the siren and pulls over another driver on the highway.
What is that?
I need you to step out of the car, sir.
The unsuspecting man steps out of his car, and without a word, the killer shoots him in the head.
Would you hold still, please, sir?
Meanwhile, miles away, an ordinary welder named Llewelyn Moss is heading home after an unsuccessful hunting trip. While crossing the desert, Moss spots several abandoned vehicles surrounded by dead bodies. The place is eerily quiet, so he cautiously walks over to see what happened.
Oh.
Inside one of the pickup trucks, he finds a wounded Mexican man barely clinging to life, begging for water.
Oh.
Moss tells him he doesn't have any. He picks up a rifle from the front seat and then notices several bricks of drugs stacked in the truck bed. It's obvious that a drug deal has turned into a massacre. Figuring that someone must have escaped with the money, he follows the trail. Before long, he comes across another man, lying dead beneath a tree. Judging by the scene, the man bled out while desperately trying to protect a suitcase. When Moss opens it, he's stunned to find it packed with stacks of $100 bills. Back home, Moss hides the suitcase without telling his wife Carla Jean.
Fine. I don't want to know. I don't even want to know where you've been all day.
But he can't stop thinking about the wounded man begging for water. Feeling guilty, he fills a jug with water and heads back to the scene. When he arrives, he realizes he's too late. Someone else has already returned and finished off the only survivor. The silence is suddenly broken by the roar of approaching engines. Moss ducks for cover, but the cartel spots him almost instantly, and a pickup comes barreling straight toward him. Knowing the desert better than they do, he sprints for the river, hoping it's his only shot at getting away, even after taking a load of buckshot to the back. Moss dives into the water, but the cartel isn't done with him. They unleash a hunting dog to finish the job. As the current carries them downstream, Moss waits for the perfect moment, climbs onto the riverbank, and kills the charging dog just before it reaches him. At sunrise, while the cartel continues searching the area, Moss painfully digs the buckshot out of his own back, treating the wound himself. Meanwhile, the killer stops at a lonely roadside gas station. The friendly owner tries making small talk, but the killer immediately takes offense.
What business is it of yours? Where I'm from?
To him, the conversation feels invasive, like the old man has no business asking questions. Little by little, he makes it clear that the clerk has picked the worst possible stranger to chat with. There's something deeply unsettling about the man, and the frightened store owner tries to end the conversation by saying it's almost closing time.
What time do you go to bed, sir?
But instead of leaving, the stranger flips a coin onto the counter and tells him to call it.
Look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything.
The old man has no idea his life depends on the outcome. He calls heads and wins.
Well done. Don't put it in your pocket, sir.
The killer slides the coin toward him and says, "Don't put it in your pocket. Mixed in with the others, it'll just become another coin," which it isn't. Then he quietly walks away. Back at home, Moss realizes he's made a huge mistake. He left his pickup truck near the massacre, meaning anyone can trace him through the license plate.
You stay with your mother.
Well, how come?
Knowing it's only a matter of time before someone comes looking for him, he tells his wife, Carla Jean, to stay with her parents in Odessa while he disappears. At the same time, the killer meets up with 2 men in the desert.
Where's the receiver?
I've got it.
They hand him a radio receiver and lead him to Moss's abandoned truck. After removing the VIN plate from the driver's door, he studies the crime scene, takes a pistol from one of the dead Mexicans, and then, without a second thought, executes both of the men who brought him there. The next morning, Terrell County Sheriff Tom Bell is called to investigate a burned-out vehicle.
Wouldn't think a car'd burn like that.
Yes, sir.
Once he arrives, he realizes it belonged to the elderly driver who was murdered the day before. Sheriff Bell and his deputies begin searching the area and soon discover Moss's abandoned pickup truck. Bell immediately recognizes it.
Belongs to a fella named Moss.
Llewelyn Moss?
That's the boy.
And after spotting several more vehicles scattered across the desert, the team heads over to investigate. Looking over the bodies, Bell concludes that the Mexican drug traffickers were killed in a shootout at least 2 days earlier. But the 2 fresher corpses tell a different story.
You know, might not even have been no money.
That's possible.
They were dumped there afterward, and the wounds make it obvious they were executed at close range. Meanwhile, the killer tracks down the trailer park where Moss used to live. Using his captive bolt pistol, he blows the lock off the trailer door and quietly walks inside. Finding the place empty, he casually pours himself a glass of milk before heading to the trailer park office.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking for Llewelyn Moss.
Receptionist tells him Moss probably went to work, but refuses to give him the address of the welding shop. For a brief moment, the killer considers handling her the same way he handles everyone else who gets in his way. But after hearing a toilet flush in a nearby room, he decides it's not worth drawing attention and simply walks out. Meanwhile, Moss takes Carla Jean to her parents' house.
Look, I'll call you in a couple days.
Promise?
Yes, I do.
Promising they'll see each other again in a few days, he watches her board the bus before continuing his escape alone. After leaving town, Moss grabs a taxi and asks the driver to take him to the nearest motel. Once he's inside his room, he removes the air vent cover and hides the suitcase deep inside the ventilation shaft. Meanwhile, the police arrive at Moss's trailer, only to find that both he and Carla Jean are already gone. Sheriff Bell notices the front door lock has been destroyed in a very unusual way.
When was he here, Sheriff?
I don't know.
Seeing a bottle of milk sitting on the table, Deputy Wendell realizes they missed the killer by only a few minutes.
Oh, Sheriff!
Bell can
We just
only
missed
hope
him!
Moss has some idea of the kind of man who's coming after him.
Looking for a man who has recently drunk milk?
The killer keeps hunting. He calls Carla Jean's mother's house, but she has no idea where Moss is hiding.
Now, why would I expect him? Who is this?
At the same time, Moss stops at a boot store and buys a new pair of cowboy boots. Later, when his taxi pulls back into the motel parking lot, his instincts tell him something is off. Instead of taking the risk, he tells the driver to keep going and finds another motel for the night.
Keep going, don't stop.
The next morning, Sheriff Bell receives the preliminary autopsy report on the elderly man murdered along the highway. The report reveals something bizarre. No bullet was found inside the victim's skull, and the fatal wound doesn't resemble anything the investigators have seen before.
Wasn't no bullet.
Yes, sir. More than none.
Knowing he needs to be prepared, Moss visits a sporting goods store and buys a pump-action shotgun along with several tent poles. He cuts the shotgun down into a sawed-off version, then returns to his original motel.
No, ma'am, I want to keep my room and get another one.
Another additional?
Yes, ma'am.
And rents the room right next to the one where he hid the money. Meanwhile, the killer continues tracking the suitcase. As he drives through town, he uses a radio receiver to pick up the signal from the tracking device hidden inside the cache. Before long, the receiver starts beeping. The signal leads him straight to the motel. At the same time, completely unaware that the killer has arrived, Moss uses the tent poles to build a makeshift tool that can reach into the ventilation shaft and pull the suitcase back out. Killer rents an empty room in the same section of the motel. Once inside, he calmly removes his boots, grabs a shotgun fitted with a homemade suppressor, and silently walks toward the room where the signal is coming from. With one blast, he destroys the door lock and storms inside, instantly gunning down the 3 Mexican gang members waiting in the room. He wipes them out with the same cold, emotionless precision that has become his trademark. Naturally, the gunfire and chaos next door immediately catch Moss's attention. After making sure everyone is dead, the killer searches the room and realizes the suitcase was hidden inside the ventilation system. He removes the vent cover, only to discover he's too late. Fresh scrape marks in the dust tell him the money was pulled out just moments ago. By then, Moss is already gone, escaping the motel by catching a ride with a passing driver. The following day, bounty hunter Carson Wells meets with a wealthy businessman.
No, sir, but you struck me as a man who wouldn't want to waste a chair.
The businessman hires Wells to recover the missing suitcase full of cash and to eliminate Anton Chigurh, the ruthless hitman who has gone completely off the rails.
Yeah, he's a psychopathic killer, but so what?
Anton Chigurh has become a serious problem. Everywhere he goes, he leaves a trail of bodies behind, and he's even started killing the people who hired him. Seeing him as a liability, the businessman orders Carson Wells to recover the suitcase and eliminate Chigurh before he causes any more damage.
We can stop that.
Seem pretty sure of yourself.
Meanwhile, Moss checks into yet another motel before heading to his room. He tells the front desk clerk to call him immediately if anyone starts asking questions about him.
There's someone who's been looking for me, not police. Just call me if anyone else checks in tonight.
As he lies on the bed, something finally clicks. Chigurh has been finding him way too easily. Suspecting the suitcase, Moss opens it and discovers a hidden tracking device buried inside the cache. Wanting to make sure everything is okay downstairs, he calls the front desk, but nobody answers. Now certain something's wrong, Moss grabs his sawed-off shotgun and waits, staring at the front door. Moments later, slow footsteps echo through the silent hallway. Without warning, the door lock explodes inward. The metal cylinder slams into Moss's chest, but he instantly fires his shotgun straight through the door in return. Moss wastes no time. Within seconds, he climbs out the window, circles around the motel, and comes out on the opposite side of the building. Another shotgun blast tears through the night, and Moss realizes he's been hit. Just then, a car appears on the otherwise empty road. He waves it down, begging the driver for help.
You drive me on out of here.
But before the man can react, Moss shoves him aside, takes the wheel, and speeds away, narrowly escaping Chigurh's gunfire. His escape doesn't last long. Weak from his injuries, Moss loses control of the car and crashes into another vehicle. Done running, he decides to make his stand. Taking cover behind a parked car, he waits in the darkness until he finally spots Chigurh slowly closing in. But Chigurh is just as careful. He notices a fresh trail of blood on the pavement and dives out of the way at the last second, barely avoiding Moss's shotgun blast. Moss keeps firing, trying to pin him down as he moves forward. He even manages to grab Chigurh's suppressed shotgun, only to realize the killer has vanished into the darkness once again. Bleeding heavily, Moss eventually reaches the US-Mexico border. He hides the suitcase beneath a bridge inside a patch of thick bushes before crossing into Mexico on foot, hoping to find medical treatment. The exhausted border officer barely glances at him as he walks through. The next morning, Moss is awakened by a group of mariachi musicians. Barely able to stand from blood loss, he asks them to find a doctor. The shootout left Chigurh wounded as well. A bullet tore through his leg, and he desperately needs medical supplies. To avoid attracting attention, he sets a car on fire to create a distraction, then calmly walks into a pharmacy and steals everything he needs. Back at his hideout, Chigurh treats the wound himself. He cleans the torn flesh, disinfects it, and injects medication without showing the slightest hint of pain, enduring the agony with his usual cold, emotionless composure. Meanwhile, Moss wakes up in a hospital room to find a stranger waiting beside his bed.
Don't worry, I'm not the man who's after you.
I know that.
The man introduces himself as Carson Wells. He tells Moss the money belongs to dangerous people, and the smartest thing he can do is give it back. Moss tries to bluff, joking that he already spent the entire fortune on booze and women. Wells isn't buying it. He explains that even though Moss figured out the tracking device and got rid of it, Chigurh will eventually find him anyway.
Took me about 3 hours.
Yeah, well, I've been immobile.
No, you don't understand.
Wells says it took him only 3 hours to track Moss down, and Chigurh is even better at it, and far more dangerous. Wells also warns Moss that Chigurh won't stop with him. If he can't find Moss, he'll go after Carla Jean in Odessa instead.
Why would he go to Odessa?
Kill your wife.
Before leaving, Wells tells Moss he's staying at a nearby hotel and says that if he wants this nightmare to end, he should bring the money there. Moss isn't convinced. He suggests it might be easier to cut a deal with Chigurh and split the money. Meanwhile, Sheriff Bell visits Carla Jean, but she insists she has no idea where her husband is.
I don't know. He don't need any trouble from you.
It ain't me he's in trouble with.
Bell asks her to call him immediately if Moss reaches out. At the same time, Wells realizes something important. There's no way Moss crossed the border carrying a suitcase that heavy, which means the money has to be hidden somewhere on the American side. Retracing Moss's path from the night before, Wells eventually discovers the suitcase hidden beneath a bridge inside a patch of thick bushes. But when he returns to his hotel, he finds Chigurh waiting for him with a shotgun. Desperate to save himself, Wells offers to tell Chigurh exactly where the money is hidden.
Find it from the riverbank. I know where it is.
Chigurh couldn't care less. He's convinced he'll find it on his own. Then the motel room phone suddenly starts ringing without saying another word. Chigurh pulls the trigger. Anton calmly answers the ringing phone. It's Moss. Without hesitation, Chigurh tells him that Carson Wells won't be talking anymore.
Not in the sense that you mean. You need to come see me.
He reveals that he already knows Moss is recovering in a hospital in Mexico and demands that he hand over the money. Otherwise, Carla Jean will die.
You know she won't be there.
It doesn't make any difference where she is.
Chigurh promises to spare her if Moss gives up the suitcase, but he makes one thing perfectly clear. Moss himself isn't walking away alive. Moss fires back, telling Chigurh that if that's the case, he'll settle this with him personally.
That's the best deal you're gonna get. I won't tell you can save yourself.
Still wearing his hospital gown, Moss returns to the U.S. border. At first, the border officer refuses to let him cross because he has no identification. But after Moss mentions he served in the infantry during the Vietnam War, the officer decides to let him through. Soon afterward, Moss buys a fresh change of clothes, retrieves the suitcase from beneath the bridge, and immediately calls Carla Jean.
Know what's going on?
I don't know. I had the sheriff here from Terrell County.
What'd you tell him?
He tells her to meet him at the Desert Sands Motel in El Paso. His plan is simple: give her the money and put her on the first flight out before Chigurh can find her. Moss believes he can handle the killer himself.
With you gone and I don't have the money, he can't touch me, but I can sure touch him. And after I find him, I'll come and join you.
Once Chigurh is gone, he and Carla Jean can finally start over. Meanwhile, Chigurh pays a visit to the businessman who hired him. Feeling betrayed after learning the businessman secretly gave tracking receivers to the Mexican gang members he had already killed, Chigurh decides there's only one punishment. He executes the businessman without hesitation. An accountant sitting nearby realizes he's witnessing a massacre. Terrified, he nervously asks Chigurh if he's going to kill him too.
Do you see me?
Carla Jean agrees to Moss's plan. She and her mother head to the bus station to travel to El Paso, while Carla steps away to use a payphone and calls Sheriff Bell to tell him about her meeting with Moss.
If I tell you where Llewelyn's headed, you promise it'll be just you who goes and talks with him?
her mother unknowingly makes a fatal mistake. As a stranger helps her load the luggage, she casually tells him exactly where they're headed.
Which bus are you taking?
Going to El Paso, don't ask me why.
Including the name of the motel where they'll be staying. Meanwhile, Chigurh keeps moving. After questioning a driver who had innocently offered him a ride about the nearest airport, he kills the man without a second thought. Not long afterward, Chigurh is seen carefully washing the stolen car. As Sheriff Bell arrives at the Desert Sands motel, gunshots suddenly ring out. He watches a vehicle packed with armed men speeding away from the scene. Realizing he's too late, Bell rushes inside the motel. In one of the rooms, he finds the lifeless body of Llewelyn Moss.
Call the police. Llámate la policía.
Who has been gunned down before the sheriff could reach him. A short time later, Carla Jean arrives at the motel. As investigators search the scene, Bell learns the suitcase is gone, confirming that the Mexican gang members recovered the money before escaping.
Pretty much a ghost.
He's real, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Later that night, Sheriff Bell returns to the motel for one last look at the crime scene. As he approaches the locked room, he notices something all too familiar. The door lock has been cleanly blown out. Despite the fear building inside him, Bell steps into the room and immediately notices that the floor vent has been removed. Sometime later, Carla Jean buries her mother after she loses her battle with cancer. Following the funeral, Carla returns to her now empty home,
I ain't got the money.
only to find Chigurh quietly waiting for her inside. She tells him she doesn't have the money and never did. Chigurh calmly replies that the money doesn't matter anymore. He reminds her of the promise he made to Moss over the phone.
Your husband had the opportunity to save you. Instead, he used you to try to save himself.
If Moss had willingly handed over the suitcase, Carla Jean would have been spared, but Moss made his choice. Chigurh gives Carla Jean one final chance.
Call it.
He flips a coin and tells her to call it, but Carla refuses to play.
Call it.
The coin don't have no say.
She tells him the coin has nothing to do with what happens because the decision has always been his, not the coin's. After leaving the house, Chigurh gets back into his car. Lost in thought, he drives through an intersection and is suddenly slammed by another vehicle in a brutal crash. His forearm is shattered in the collision, but despite the horrific injury, he calmly climbs out of the wreck.
You have a bone sticking out of your arm.
All right, let me just sit here a minute.
He asks two nearby boys for help, takes one of their shirts to use as a makeshift sling.
You didn't see me. I was already gone.
Yes, sir.
Pays the boy generously for it and tells them both to forget they ever saw him. Sometime later, the now retired Sheriff Bell sits at home, telling his wife about two dreams he had the night before.
Anything interesting?
He reflects on how, unlike his father and grandfather, he survived a lifetime in law enforcement and lived long enough to retire. And that's how No Country for Old Men comes to an end. If you enjoyed this recap, hit that subscribe button because the next movie is even crazier and you won't want to miss it.